going to move on to a question for Dr. Beauvais, and I think this is probably one of the number one questions. I've seen it come up a few times in the chat. First of all, how will I know when I'm eligible to get the vaccine? Do I need a referral? And will Northern Virginia Family Practice be giving out the vaccine?
We wish we would be giving out the vaccine, but right now we're not giving out the vaccine because we don't have those negative 80-degree refrigerators, and also because it hasn't been granted us yet. So the distributors at first will be centers that can handle large volumes. So, for example, in auditoriums and high school gyms will be the kind of a place that can be set up to be giving a high volume of vaccines. I'll explain to you how it works. For example, for the healthcare providers, when we went to the hospital, there was 2 large auditoriums set up, and probably 4 rooms to kind of receive people in a line, to do a registration in another line, to then go into 30 different tables where 30 different nurses were set up simultaneously giving vaccines, to then going into a recovery waiting area where people just waited for 15 minutes and signed up for their booster shot and kind of breathed in a moment of history under their mask. So these are the types of places that are able to handle the vaccinations, are those types of large volume facilities. And I expect that that will be true for the next month or 2. What was the next part of this question, Dr. Havert?
How will we know? How will we know when we're phased or when we're eligible?
Okay. Oh yeah. So the 2 questions we're getting the most is, how will we know? And so once there are tiers for people that are where our patients become eligible for that, we will be notifying people in 3 different ways. We'll be sending out an email. We will be giving an automated phone message like we would if you were having an appointment tomorrow and the speaker comes online. And we will be posting it on our website. So those are the 3 ways that we'll plan to get that information out for you.
So an NVFP will be getting information out, but I think it's also important to be following Virginia Department of Health and other health departments, because they might be giving out information for when, okay, 1Bs, this is, maybe, this is the time. I noticed that on the Virginia Department of Health also that you can register, actually. So if they're trying to, even though they're not going to give you the vaccine right away, just sort of knowing who's kind of in the queue. So programs like
another question is, well, how do I sign up? Just because I know that it's being offered, how do I sign up? And we don't know yet, but once we do know, we'll try to put that information together and, explain that on our messages, and also send the links when we have them.
Yeah, so I would just say, the information will be disseminated. You will get it, whether it's through us or through other avenues, but just, it's once we know, once it is known, that information will be sent out. Okay, and then let's see.
One more question, Dr. Havert.
Yeah.
People were asking on the chat if I live in Arlington, can I go to another county to get mine?
Yeah, I don't think we answered that.
Yeah, and we don't know, but my sense is that mostly the vaccine distribution is not about big amounts of rules and gatekeeping. It's really about finding a way to get massive amounts of people through a process safely, and to try to be mindful about those at highest risk first. And so I don't at all look at it as a kind of a cat fight or someone's going to get kicked out kind of a thing. I really think it's going to be a very forgiving kind of a system, and I don't expect that it's going to be fraught with tons of problems. I would imagine you could go to other counties to get your shot. You could probably get a shot in another state. They're not checking to make sure that we're like Virginia residents. They just wanted our hospital IDs, and I think they're going to be forgiving in this process.
I think the goal is just to get everybody vaccinated, and they're just going to do their best to do that. All right. And then Dr. Havert, Mike, can you discuss a little bit what herd immunity is? I think that Dr. Bove mentioned the importance of herd immunity. Can you talk a little bit more about that and why that's important to basically getting our lives back to the way that they were?
Yeah. So we have a raging pandemic going. It's like a wildfire, and we want to separate sources of fuel, kind of isolate those sources of fuel. And if you have people that have been immunized and are not spreading or not raging infection, surrounding infected people with lots of other people that are not infected are a way to kind of buffer and prevent spread in the community. So herd immunity is a state of a community. It's not a vaccine strategy. A vaccine strategy that involves herd immunity is basically neglect. Just let it infect everybody.
And can you say what the percentage of people that need to be vaccinated in order to get to herd immunity? Is that known at this time?
Hard to know. You can do these are retrospective epidemiology type studies. Looking at community spread. It's got to be a high percentage of the population.
Dr. Zweig, what's the harm in waiting to get the vaccine? What if are there safety concerns, or what's the harm of waiting?
Yeah, so I think we touched upon this on sort of both parts of this. So this is sort of really a two-part question. Obviously, the harm in waiting is getting COVID. The longer you wait, the more likely you are to get sick. I think we are, dealing with an incredibly contagious virus, and so the longer you wait, the longer you either stay at home and continue to mask up and be extremely cautious, or the longer you increase your odds of getting COVID. So waiting, again, this all comes back to weighing the risks and benefits, and the risk of the virus, the risk of the vaccine, as we said, is quite low. Waiting to make sure it's safe, I don't know what else you're going to wait for. I mean, 20 million doses have been given worldwide. As Dr. Bove said, 70,000 people were involved in the initial studies. Those are incredible numbers. And so, you rarely, if ever, find any kind of studies with those kinds of numbers. So to see these kinds of safety markers for something that we know is probably if you wait and get the virus instead, you're talking about 100 times higher risk of getting COVID than getting the vaccine. And so to me, it's a no-brainer. So that's really the risk of waiting. And also, the longer you wait, the longer it is going to be before we all get to herd immunity as a society.
Exactly.
So we want everybody to get vaccinated as soon as possible.
Dr. Bove, I've seen some reports that some healthcare providers, often nurses, do not plan to take the vaccine. Why is this, and how will it affect, in your mind, the effort to get this under control?
Sure, good question that lots of healthcare people are trying to help answer. I think that the biggest concern is the same concerns that all of you are expressing, and we all had before we got our shots. It's just that it's new, and it's something that we haven't had time to study for as long as we normally study these things. And it feels very, very novel, not just the novel coronavirus, but the novel vaccine, because most of us are unlike Mike Havert, have not been around mRNA vaccines for 30 years. So it feels like a brand new technology. I think, so I think there's the natural concern of, well, what are the side effects, which are very few and very brief, just like a typical flu shot type side effects.
Can you go into those a little bit, because there was a question about what the side effects of the vaccine are?
Sure. So the side effects of this vaccine are similar to the side effects that we talk about for every vaccine, which is that your arm can hurt. You could develop a low-grade fever the next day as your immune system starts to rev up to respond to the vaccine. You could feel a little tired. You could get a headache. You could kind of feel achy for a day or two or three. Mostly that's going to actually, that's been reported to affect the younger people more than the older people. I don't know, maybe the older we are, the more likely we are to have been actually, I guess two reasons. More likely we are to have been exposed to any other coronaviruses, but B, maybe also our immune systems aren't working as well as they were when we were younger. And so those people that have the stronger reactions when they're younger are because they have a very nice, robust immune system. So those are the typical side effects. Obviously, we haven't been longer than 8 months with these vaccines, so we don't know the long-term side effects. And that's another question people have. We're very sensitive to the national conversation about the vaccines in that healthcare, health technologies have been misused over the years in many populations, and that's a natural source of skepticism amongst people that are from those populations. So I think, for example, the CEO of Howard University Hospital was explaining that it's harder for her to kind of get a whole group around this idea of an experimental trial. And so that's a conversation that's not going to be like over today. It's going to go on for the year, and we'll kind of continue to collect data and continue to have conversations with people. And I think that the more we're able to talk about the vaccine and to scientifically address what we do know about the vaccine and explain what we don't know, more people will be comfortable taking it. But I think largely because it's new. There was a question about the allergic reactions. I think 12 out of a million people is that right, Ken? Is that the right number? 12 out of a million were getting anaphylaxis from this?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah. So the people who are getting allergic reactions, it could be anyone. It tends to be a little bit more likely. I think 7 of those 12 people had already had anaphylaxis before in their life, and I'm not sure if it's the same number, but somewhere around 7 or 8 of them had prior known allergies, like severe allergies. But typically having an allergy is not a contraindication to getting the vaccine. So it's safe to get the vaccine if you have a latex allergy, a food allergy, environmental allergies, seasonal allergies. Those are not the kinds of things that people are concerned about. If people have had an allergy to an injection medication before, that would be something that would probably be a contraindication to getting the vaccine, but should be something you would discuss with your allergist. And people with a prior history of anaphylaxis, although some of them have gotten this vaccine and that's not an absolute contraindication, it is something that's going to make us more likely to have anaphylaxis again. All 12 of those people were safely treated for that condition. It typically develops within 15 minutes of exposure to the vaccine. And since people are being treated in healthcare centers where they're getting watched for 15 minutes, they're able to say, hey, I'm having symptoms. Most of them have brought their EpiPens. They get treated and they've been released sometimes after a day.
So Dr. Zweig, how should we discuss this vaccine with people that are a little bit more skeptical? Do you have any quick recommendations?
Yeah, so yeah, I think this is a really good question, a really important one, I think, to me and to all of us, because there is a fair bit of skepticism out there. I don't know if people have read it, but there's some studies, some reports say that there's as many as 40% of people don't want to get the vaccine. That affects all of us. So again, like we said before, the more people who get this, the sooner we can get society back on track. So if you have friends or family members who are skeptical, there are certain techniques, the power of persuasion that can get you to help nudge them in the right direction. And this can work for a whole bunch of ways of nudging people, but it's really important to understand that there's 2 things that you need to keep in mind. So one, you need to know there's 2 kinds of skeptics. There are the absolute skeptics and what we call the equivocal skeptics. The absolute skeptics are people who are absolutely set in their ways. They never get vaccines. They have a significant mistrust of the healthcare system or systems in general. You're not going to change their mind. They are completely set in their ways, and trying to persuade them is probably going to do nothing but cause an argument. So, you can just listen to their views and move on. But the equivocal skeptics are people who are not planning on getting the vaccine, but are thinking about it and have a little piece in the back of their mind that says, maybe this isn't such a bad idea. I'm not really sure what to do. So they're the people that you want to focus on to get them to possibly change their mind. And so first and most importantly is don't be judgmental with them. Listen to their concerns. Their views are real because they believe that they're real. A judgmental tone is just going to make them angry and make them more entrenched in their views. And so that doesn't help anything. You don't want to be dismissive of them. You want to ask why they're skeptical and listen to them closely and acknowledge what their views are, and that you understand that those views are real. And then the second way to go about it is to share your own side of it, share what your views are. If you have a personal story, explain why you're going to get the shot, or if you've already gotten it, explain why you got it and what your experience was, especially if you had a positive experience. Knowing your own story to somebody that you're close to has a lot more weight than saying that Wolf Blitzer or somebody on TV got their shot. That doesn't carry nearly as much weight as somebody that's right in front of you that they know and that is close to them. It really is a lot more motivating. So and then also explain to them, if they are close to you, explain to them why it's important to you for them to get the shot. There's somebody that you care about. Say, listen, I want you to get the shot because I care about you. It's important to me. It's a hard one to say no to. And then finally, make sure that you stay on a positive point of view. Talk to them about what good will come from the vaccine, not what bad will come if they don't get the vaccine. Fear isn't a great motivator. And then once you're done with all those points, what you can do is say, hey, listen, I made my case. Are you willing to get a vaccine now? How about if I helped you schedule it, or gave you the phone numbers or places that you could get it? What if I came with you or drove you to your appointment? Just make it as easy on them as possible to get the vaccine and show them that you're supportive of them. And so following these rules, you can find these online. There's all kinds of things about it, but as best you can, trying to motivate somebody, even if you motivate one person, you may have saved a life.
Thank you very much. I think what we'll do is, I've got one more question, I think, but I saw this in the chat. This was, and it's going to be a question to Dr. Mike Havert, basically talking about the differences between the Astrazeneca vaccine and the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine. If you could tell us a little bit about the differences between the two, and then I don't know, I'll throw this out. Will we be able to choose which vaccine that we get? So, but we can try. Anybody can try to answer that. But Mike, can you talk a little bit about the differences?
The differences. So the Astrazeneca vaccine is kind of the second bin, and there were 3 bins in Operation Warp Speed. The mRNA bin we talked about. This is a adenovirus vector vaccine. And so it involves recombinant DNA. This is a genetically modified virus. Don't be afraid of that. It's replication defective, and it generates a very powerful immune response. There are Ebola vaccines approved in the US stockpile that are adenovirus vectored. And it's a fast way to make a vaccine.
Great. And then in either Dr. Zweig or Dr. Beauvais, will we be able to choose which vaccine that we get?
I'll be happy to take this one.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, anybody can jump in.
All right, good. Yeah, so the likelihood is no. As I like to tell my daughter, you get what you get and you don't get upset. And right now, between Moderna and Pfizer, they're essentially the exact same thing. They're the same material. The only differences between them is how they're manufactured and maybe the preservatives or carriers and how they're stored, but the genetic material that's in them is virtually exactly the same. So it really doesn't make a difference. The difference between the 3 weeks and 4 weeks is really just how they were studied. Probably not much difference at all. So
yeah, and I think that there was that one report about the Pfizer vaccine causing anaphylaxis, and then suddenly there were all the rumors about, well, if I have allergies, I won't be able to get that one, but that's been disproven.
So, but really, wherever you are going to be whatever it's going to be available, you get that one because you don't want to miss your spot in line. And there's really not much difference between the two. So maybe you can, game the system if you can find a place that's in DC or something like that to get the one you want. But there's no real reason to choose one over the other, at least not right now.
Great, great. I'm gonna just go through some of this. Any concerns about the impact of the vaccine on future fertility?
I'll try that.
Okay, go ahead.
We don't know. Unlikely.
Like the rest of these, we don't know.
Yeah, but we don't know. I mean, we haven't tested it and then tried to have people get pregnant. So it's unlikely.
Yeah. And the same thing, I think there was a question about with kids. I mean, I think that with Moderna now is having is currently enrolling kids, and they're doing that part of the studies. So as of right now, I mean, I don't think there should be an issue with kids getting the vaccine. But again, this is just something that we're studying. But hopefully, I mean, luckily, kids, you know, they seem to be. They're really good spreaders of the of COVID, but thankfully they don't get as sick. So you know, it's going to be important to get them vaccinated at some point so we can contain the spreading. But
yeah, there was a question in the chat about a baby. I think babies will be the last ones to get vaccinated against this, just because we'll test it in 12-year-olds first, and then we'll go down to 4-year-olds, and then we'll finally go down to babies, which is just another reason to get everyone around that baby vaccinated.
So the more people that can get vaccinated, just go. I always tell people maybe if they don't want to get a, well, I don't know if it's the flu shot, you know, I don't care if I get the flu. And I'm like, well, you know what, take one for the team, because there's a lot of people who could get really sick from this, and there's no way we're not going to get control over this situation until a good number of people are vaccinated. So as we've been saying from the very beginning, we're in this together. We're especially in this together with trying to get the vaccine. Can you develop immunity by multiple exposures to small amounts of virus in the community?
I think I'll try that one.
Okay, yeah.
My college-age daughter came home saying that was how she was going to become immune. I just think it's so hard to meter out a small dose that you get in the community. I don't think that would be a very reproducible strategy. You know, maybe if you were in an ICU and you walked through for 20 minutes every day with two surgical masks on and not an N95, you could measure the amount of coronavirus you're going to get. But I just think it's going to be very hard to do. But in theory, if you got micro doses of an antigen, could a person become immune? You know, theoretically, sure. Practically, probably unwise. And we also don't know what dose of coronavirus would make anyone sick, and it might be different for all of us.
You know, one thing we do know about the coronavirus, this is a very kind of strange, unpredictable virus, and we're learning about it as we go. So it's I'd say don't take it for granted, and trust the science that we've got so far. We've got a lot of people working very, very hard on this, and I think it's phenomenal, the fact that we came up with the vaccine this quickly. And a lot of people say, well, I'm scared by that, but I mean, this technology has been in the works for about 20 years, and we were just sort of almost waiting for an opportunity to use it, and this is it. So the science has been absolutely incredible as far as I'm concerned with this.
I learned this technology when I was in medical school in the mid-90s. I remember the lecture about it and thought that was so amazing. And so this has been something we've been working on for many, many, many years. So this is a new application of an old technology.
Exactly. It's not new science, it's old science, but it's being used for a good cause here. What are the long-term conditions? I think Dr. Bove, you alluded to what are the long-term conditions associated with having COVID-19?
Oh, so some of the long-term, the side effects that people are living with long-term, it's almost everything. I mean, sadly, there's so many people with really long-term problems. A lot of them are cognitive. People feel fuzzy. Their COVID affects the ability to sleep. And some of the people that are recovering from COVID have a long-term distortion in their sleep-wake cycle. People have memory problems. There are some small numbers of people who develop psychosis. Lots of pulmonary problems. So those who've had really bad pulmonary problems get better and they get off of the ventilators, but it's still difficult for them to maintain function and have normal activity levels, regaining the level that they used to have. People feel fatigued, just chronically exhausted. I don't know if those people who have, some people get severe GI side effects from COVID and they can get very, very violent diarrhea. And I don't know if those people have persistent digestive effects. Anything else? Ken, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you got it pretty good.
Yeah, it's just again, and it's hard to know. It's hard to predict who's going to have these long-term effects, and it's just not anything to play around with. Here's an interesting question: could the mRNA vaccines protect us from other coronaviruses besides COVID, the novel coronavirus? So basically, coronaviruses they're the cause of the common cold. It's one of the causes of the common cold. So do you think this vaccine could protect us against the common cold?
It could. There's cross protection, spectrum of antibodies. Antibodies fit like a lock-in key to an antigen, and you can get your key in a little bit sometimes. So, your antibodies can bind really, really tightly, and that's what you're driving with multiple exposures and prime boost. But you can also have weak binding antibodies that also have an effect. So there is cross reactivity between strains of viruses.
And there was a recent study that showed actually getting the flu shot actually decreased the severity of COVID. So there may be some immune functions that we don't really understand in different viruses. And so this might actually help not just with other coronaviruses, but maybe even with other conditions, possibly.
Okay, somebody asked, are the doses for the same for the first and second vaccines? I think the answer to that is yeah, they're the same. So both for Moderna and well, I don't know, Mike, with the Astrazeneca one, is that?
Yeah, they're both the same constitution. And I said prime boost, that implies two different preparations. All these vaccines so far are the same. So it's kind of a prime, same thing twice.
Great. Okay, and again, there's still, did we answer, will NVFP be offering the vaccine? I think honestly, we don't know. We're not going to be purchasing any special sub freezers or anything like that for the Pfizer vaccine. So that one's kind of off the table. The Moderna vaccine maybe, but we haven't been contacted or alerted to any availability for us to be able to give it. So unfortunately,
yeah, there's a few aspects of that. One part is the refrigeration, which is a surmountable obstacle. Another part is that those vaccines are packaged in very large quantity doses. And so when you take one pack out of the freezer, you have to use those 177 doses quickly. I don't know whether it's in 24 hours or exactly what it is, but it's volumes that have to be used at a volume that's higher than what we could handle in our office. We don't have enough people to even give shots to 177 people in a day. So we will not have the Pfizer vaccine. I'm pretty sure of that. We are in the Fairfax County registry to become a distributor of vaccines once it becomes practical for offices to have a vaccine. But I would not suggest that people hold out hope that it's going to be coming through us. I think it's much more likely that there'll be distribution centers in the community that we will all be directing people to. And then there's a lot of questions on here about, can you find me the special form to figure out how this is going to work in my county? We're just kind of getting this piecemeal a little bit ourselves. And so maybe those counties don't even have a form yet. I'm not sure. We haven't gotten to phase 1B yet. So right now, the people that are getting vaccinated are people who are living in long-term care facilities, people who work in long-term care facilities, and people who work in healthcare. And I think that we're imagining maybe in early February, we'll be getting to the next tier. Probably that gives us 2 or 3 weeks to get all that paperwork out. And so probably those counties will develop a system for that. I just read an email from Fairfax County today that said, well, we've vaccinated 10,000 of our healthcare workers, but we are so flooded because the system that we set up is not adequate to handle all the calls that we're getting. So we're developing an online registration, but they hadn't had an online registration already developed when they started vaccinating people. So the county, the distribution centers are learning as they begin to figure this out. And so I would just really beg everyone to have a little bit of patience with everyone. And we really are going to all get vaccinated. I feel really good about what's happening already for this community, for healthcare communities. And I really do feel like it's going to become open soon, but we don't know the answers on all those counties. And maybe those counties don't know the answers on themselves.
Okay, one last question. Have all the doctors here had the vaccine? I have. I've had my first dose.
First dose.
I have.
First.
Yeah. The answer is yes.
Yes. Yep. And yeah, and it was easy. It was easier than a flu shot. So no hesitation. I was grateful and honored to be given the vaccine. I'm glad that you know, we're finally at a place where we feel like we might be starting to get the upper hand on this, on COVID-19. This is really, like the video said, and like we've all talked about, this has really been a hard year. It's really put a damper on all of our lives. And, you know, and it's just having the vaccine. I think we're all, I can just tell the energy here is there's people are anxious. How do I sign up? How do I get this? How do I get that? But you know, it's just take a deep breath. We're going to get there. It's just be kind of lean into the, you know, the gratitude that we finally might be getting the upper hand on this. And again, we're all in this together. You know, it's not going to be, you know, pushing people out of the way to get the vaccine first or anything. Let's just all work on helping one another get through this, get the vaccine, and just, you know, hopefully we will slowly be getting out of this. There was a question about, you know, what is December 2021 going to look like? And I think a lot of that just depends on what we do today. If we go out there, we get our vaccines, we, you know, we work on this together. I think the faster that we can do that, the sooner that, you know, that things will get back to normal. Maybe December 2021, we will be able to spend with our families and you know, the holidays. But a lot of that depends on what we do today. So I just want to thank everybody for coming. I know this is, I mean, there's so many questions, and very likely we'll be doing more of these town halls. This is just sort of the beginning, but anyway, you know, continue to send questions to us. You know, we'll see if we can get to them. We'll probably generate another town hall. And I want to thank Dr. Mike Havert, for being on and, you know, giving us some instruction. When we were preparing for this, I learned a lot about viruses, and I was really appreciative to have somebody who knew the basic science behind all this, because it is a lot to learn in a very short period of time. So just want to say thank you.
There's going to be another town hall in 2 weeks. I don't know if you were going to say that, but
No.
if anybody's interested, we're going to be talking about pain management, chronic pain. So if anybody's dealing with that, we're going to have a couple of guests on about that. So please keep an eye out for another one in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, and please do let us know if you need us to provide this information for some group that you're connected with, because we'd love to have this conversation again.